Howdy, Sax Geeks. Welcome back to Saxophone Geek. YouTube, thanks for subscribing. Please share, like, and subscribe, right? That's what we ask. Today we're going to review a tool just because I happen to need it, and we'll see if we can utilize it. This is the Boston Sax Shop Traveling Vagabond. They have a name for it. They have some funny name for it. But it's basically a Swiss Army knife with saxophone tools on it. It's fairly weighty. It's aluminum anodized, I'd assume anodized aluminum. It's got the BSS Sax Shop logo on it, and it has 3 or 4 different tools on it, and I'll show them to you. All right, so to look at the tool, we have 3 screwdrivers, the different widths. And we'll find out very soon if they're thin enough. I mean, obviously, he's making this for saxophones, so they must have it dialed in. We have a spring tool. This is really neat. This is probably the most useful part of this tool. A spring catch, which is something that you would not have on hand, anything that would really work properly, unless you were into crocheting, and how many of us are crocheting these days. But this is a pretty neat thing, because you'll be able to get it in and move springs as necessary. Sometimes you can pull a spring, but then you need to push it, and that's really neat. That's really cool. You can see it pretty good there up in the corner. And then the last thing we have here, I'm pretty sure it's the only other thing, is a reed shaping tool. And you could argue that this is sort of a copy of some other product, right? And it's also black anodized, and you can see the sharp edges. Let's see here. You can see there on the edge where it's sort of sharpened on the edge there. And it is pretty sharp, and it does exactly what some other product does. It sharpens it. You can cut a reed flat for the backside. I don't do a lot of reed shaping, really. The spring on this is really difficult. This is really difficult to open. Even with 2 hands. So I would say that's not the best. I'm going to put this away, and I'm going to use one of these screwdrivers, because today I need to adjust my horn a little bit, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. All right, so we're here with the tenor, and I had this adjusted because I bumped the horn a few times right around New Year's, and it was leaking really bad. I had to leave it at the shop, and Frank got it into shape for me, and it's sealing up just like it should. But the problem that you end up with is for high F sharp, which is our first altissimo note on the horn, I prefer 1 and 1. I used to do 1, 1, and 1 and 3 here. I learned that from George Garzone. He does this one, but I'm really out of the habit of that. It makes it a little sharper also. I prefer this one here, but in order for it to play right, I need the Biss key to close, and you can't see it. There's a little movement there, and it's just enough for the note to be really sharp and unpleasant. So what do you do about that? Well, you got to adjust it here on this guy, and what we need to do is just turn it just a tiny bit, hoping that just a little bit of movement will close this. The problem is that not long after you get this to close fully, it starts to push this open, so you have very, very little room. We're going to see. I wonder if these are really strong enough to do any true movement. A real screwdriver is hardened steel. I don't know what this material is and whether it's going to be stout enough to actually move a screw like this. You know, if you're just retightening hinge screws and rod screws, that's fine. Retighten it until it's taut, right? But this is something different, because this is a height adjustment, and sometimes they're fairly stiff. The other thing I don't want to do is I don't want to overdo it and then have this horn play poorly tonight at the gig, and then all weekend hence. So this is the one we need to adjust. It's just a little bit of play in it. And so what I want to do, let me show you what I mean first. So I'm going to play the high F sharp, and then you'll hear the difference when I close the Biss key. Here, that's why I really need it to close. Now, I'm not going to mess with this too much. If I can get this to turn like 1/8 of a turn. The thing I don't like is this puts me really close to the bell here. See if this opens. Well, it opens all the way, and you can kind of use it like a screwdriver, so that's going to save me a little energy there. All right, turned a little bit. Still moving. So that didn't quite do what we needed. Let's give it a little more. not really wanting to move that much. That's better, but it stopped moving on me. And I don't want to strip it. This already took a little damage, the tool itself. So there's no way to know how much we're going to get out of this. And again, we don't want to damage the horn, make us, bung up. They call it bunging up a screw. When you screw up the slot, we don't want to do that. Maybe I can get it to move just a little bit more. I'm having to hold it here to get some rigidity. It's kind of flimsy. Oh, we dropped it. Let's see how that goes. And you want to check, make sure the low notes are still coming out, to be sure that you didn't tighten it too much. That again, now that it's pushing this open, because we don't want to push the F sharp open, and that's exactly what'll happen. That's why this is such a difficult adjustment on your horn, because in order to get the Biss key to close all the way, you can still hear it. I can hear it. You might not be able to hear it, but you can hear that it's still opening a tiny little bit. But that's better than it was. I'm going to give it one more little bit of a turn here. To be really careful not to push it too far. Now let's try it. And the low notes are still working. So there you go. There you go. We used the BSS Sax shop saxophone tool to adjust our Biss key, and that way we don't gotta go and bother the guys at the shop. And everything seems to still be closing down here. And again, that's the big problem with this adjustment, is that if you screw this down too far, then the Biss key arm will push open the F sharp. And that's why it's a really big. Most guys don't play F sharp like that. A lot of cats play on tenor. They play this with, I call it the hook, where you do F and the B flat key, the B flat and the F, and they do this guy. But I just, for me, that's too much. My hands don't do it. And I got out of the habit of doing the George Garzone one. The Garzone does this, and what that does is that causes the G to push closed the Biss key, right? And I did that for a long time, but I kind of got out of the habit of it, because it's, all those fingerings have different intonation. They have a different pitch, slightly. So that all those things make a difference. I remember Jack telling me when he started first for the BSS Sax shop, Jack, I remember him telling me when he started to get into the work, before he opened the shop, he was doing some work for Bill Pierce. He did an overhaul for Bill, and Bill, it was a G sharp, I don't know what it was, but one of it was he wanted the D key to close everything fully. And, most of the time, for F sharp and E and everything to close that's enough. And this isn't usually regulated that closely for with the bar that goes across for the F sharp opening here. And it was some fingering that Bill does where he really likes that third one down. And Jack said he had to go over that a few times to really get it right for Bill, because normally that's not a critical adjustment for the D key. So all these things are different, and it's all relative to the player and their resistance and how their chops and their playing works for the different fingerings that give you the results you need as far as projection and intonation and timbre. And so for me, 1 and 1 for high F sharp, and I just need that guy to close. So I think we'll be okay today, and this will be with me in case I overdid it and I find that it's leaking or something. And I can always bother Frank tomorrow at the shop. But, it's a little tiny thing if I can do it myself. Sometimes your repairman will use Loctite and lock these closed, which is bad because then it's really hard to break them free. Fortunately, this is not in that position. And sometimes they're loose. These can vibrate. You know, if it's a really old horn that's really been used a lot, sometimes these aren't that tight in this thread. So it's all relative. I hope this video isn't as long as they normally are. And stay tuned for, I have an unboxing video coming that's soprano sax related, and maybe we'll do an update on the alto. I've been really digging the Ted Klum mouthpiece. The Yardbird that I'm playing on alto. I had a few things last weekend or 2 weekends ago on alto, and that mouthpiece just rocks. It's rowdy and ballsy and fun. So check out the Ted Klum Yardbird. I don't often signal boost. And I'm not paid to say that. I paid for the mouthpiece. I'm not paid to say any of that, but it's a pretty badass little alto mouthpiece. Pardon my French. But anyway, so that's a little tenor stuff. Boston Sax reed tool. Pretty nice. And I like that it's got the reed tool thing on it. It's not a reed tool. It's a multi-tool. But anyway, so that's the deal. Saxophone Geek. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. And hope you have good reads. It's a little wintry here. We're getting some single-degree weather, as you can probably hear the wind in the background. So stay warm out there. Hopefully you're watching this video in summer, and things are better. Hey, all right. So anyway, my name is Andy Voelker out of Boston, the Saxophone Geek, and thanks for watching. Hey guys, I'm going to include a little bonus footage here of a friend of mine who sat in on my gig the other night. I played quartet at the Mad Monkfish in Cambridge, Mass. And my friend Anton came down and hung out, and so I had, of course, invited him up to play a few tunes. And here is a solo, and his name is Anton Derevyanko, and you can find him on Instagram. Anton Plays the Sax. Anton Plays the Sax on Instagram, and he's a killing player, nice cat, and check him out, subscribe to him on Instagram, and Saxophone Geek here will check you on the next video. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.